Welcome to Nobody Will Train You, but you.
Nobody will hear you either.
Nobody.
You need to be louder.
Testing? Thank you, Evan.
You bet.
Have a beer.
Okay, my name's Zach Briggs, specifically. I'm the other Zach on the Twitters. Not a super scalable Twitter handle. I've got a friend who goes by the Andrew. It's like, oh, you bastard. A year ago, I was not writing software at all. And I was a little bit angry about it. It was always somebody else's fault, right? I graduated at the wrong time, graduated in 2002 with a computer information science degree, which of course is an English degree for people who play a lot of Quake. About a year ago, I was drowning in work, doing direct mail analytics, which is exactly as exciting as it sounds. I Googled Rails. It's a framework. It's one kids are talking about these days, just to automate some reports. Within 6 months, I had shipped that first website, been hired as a junior developer, and promoted to developer-flavored developer. Not an apprentice, not a junior. So I'm not telling you this to brag. Well, not telling you this to only brag. I see people kind of sitting around waiting for permission. There's something about their lives that they don't like very much. It could be where they're working, it could be what they're doing, it could be the city they're living in. Nobody's gonna give you a hand with that. Nobody's gonna come by and rescue you. It's kind of up to you. Here's specifically how I went about making changes. And there's some neat sounds coming from the microphone. When I first started developing, I spent a lot of time in Stack Overflow looking for syntax. All the time. Started to feel like it was rotting my brain. Like every time I was going out there, it was making me a little bit more stupid. I ran this by a bunch of people, and I got a lot of pushback. I'm sorry. Let me de-douche that a little bit. They called bullshit on me and said, look, Google has the sum of human knowledge, basically, right? We don't really need to know anything anymore because we can search for it, right? I really don't think that's the case. Have any of you actually gone out to Google to grab a bit of syntax that you didn't quite know, and you were just visited with a full page of visited links, like you've been here before, right? Had you gotten the answer, you had copied it, pasted it back into your editor or IDE, and I couldn't quite remember what the heck you were doing. Do you like movies about gladiators? There's a cost to doing this all day long, right? It's a context switch. It's just like being tapped in the shoulder. We know how expensive that is. Typically, it takes about 10-ish minutes to recover from a context switch. In a given day, it's not uncommon for us to have 3 productive hours. Meetings, external interruptions, lunch, food's good. So in those 3 hours, if I have to go out and search for 9 things at 10 minutes a pop, I'm down to about an hour and a half. I'm not good enough to get all my work done in an hour and a half. That's also awesome.
Your phone.
Oh, my phone is in my pocket. Thank you. You stay right there, watching it. So we can fight this. This is actually really easy to take care of. I got this from Corey Haynes. Not the picture. At least, not as far as you know. I'd considered using a version of that without the watermark, but I think it's kind of perfect with it. Awkward stock photos. It's kind of a treasure trove. So each time I don't know something during the day, I'll write it down on an index card. I'll write down the answer on the other side on the other side of the card when I have a little bit of downtime. Such, like, I don't know, like in a meeting or like this gentleman, I'll review it, I'll learn it. So that way I know it cold. Anything I didn't know during the day, within 2 days, I'll just have that. Example, right? This one's inspired a bit by Evan sitting over there. But I come across this kind of problem all the time. We do dashboarding. Dashboard is a verb now, by the way. And we get a lot of text files as input as opposed to like user forms. It's not quite as clean as we'd like it, so I'll get a collection of strings. I don't want the whole string. I just want part of the string, and regular expressions are dumb. I took a break from being angry at regular expressions long enough to learn just enough to get what I needed. So right here, we've got an array of names. I'm grabbing the first name. It's not that complicated, but anytime I come across a problem that looks anything like this, I just have it at my fingertips. I don't even have to think about it. Another one, right? Hashes. Dictionaries in Python, right? Yes, no? Yeah, I got a thumbs up, got a nod. So I'll have a set of keys. Say, right here, there's string keys. That's for symbol keys. So now I've got each with object in my pocket. Much like my phone was. So anytime I need to restructure a hash, I've got that. But this also brings another point. See, when we're looking at the answer right there, it's really easy for us to say, oh yeah, I got it, right? Yeah. Each with object. Yeah, I got it. But if we're just looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, and we're not letting ourselves go out to Google, it's a little bit harder to think we got it, right? So what were the order of the arguments for each with object versus, say, inject, right? So, if we do actually got it, and we can just bust that out without thinking about it, well, then that's fine, but we can't fool ourselves if it's not up there. But this will only get us so far. So I'm not going to look up each with object and somehow get dependency injection out of that, right? I'm not going to get composition over regular expressions. At least I really hope not. So we need to find a way to know what we don't know that we do not know, It's the unknown unknowns, right? Thank you, Donald Rumsfeld. Or the black swans. So for anybody who's unfamiliar with this, there's the stuff I know, which is the smallest piece of the pie. There's the stuff I know that I do not know, which was that entire last section, right? I didn't have that at my fingertips during the day when I needed it. And then, of course, there's the pain in the ass part. There's the stuff that I don't know that I do not know. Give you an example of something, for me, pretty recently. So the Lab Demeter, right? Like, everybody kind of knows this one. At least they should. It's the dot law, but not really the dot law, but yeah, it's kind of a dot law. Evan talked about that in his talk a little bit. You can pick your friend, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. But yeah, I understood that. I thought I did. But it wasn't until I was putting one of my methods under test. Like, I was trying to capture a bug and drive out all the corner cases through tests. And each time I was writing a new test, I had to instantiate like 3 or 4 unrelated objects. It was a pain in the ass. And it was kind of at that moment that I realized, oh right. So the thing that I said, oh, it's not a big deal, like that test pane is telling me something, right? And it's kind of telling me that the setup is bad. It's telling me that those unrelated objects, if those If those interfaces change, then that's going to cause my whole system, right, to shatter. And I'm new, right? I have not been doing this for a full year, so this was kind of a revelation to me. You guys in the audience, you've probably come across this a long time ago. So yeah, that was a good thing. And it was through that test pain that I gained that bit of wisdom. It was the light bulb, right? Wisdom, like mustaches and mullets, must be earned, not grown. Leon Gerson quote, but it's a picture of my dad. Leon's not my dad. I don't think so. Dad's always notorious for having this desperado mustache. I don't know which one of the barn cats he's holding there, but I can guarantee you she has a name. Every single animal on my parents' farm, I grew up on a farm, has a name. Every cow, every cat, which has nothing to do with my talk. So we earn these bits of wisdom, but we don't have to sit around and wait for those random ideal votes to come through pain. We can go forth and through extracurricular work, earn more. So where? Well, there's source code, right? Reading the source. And I think for people of kind of a higher skill level, this can be super valuable. And even for me, it's handy, but I tend not to get those great aha moments from reading source code. Process cannot be inferred from product any more than a pig can be inferred from a sausage. It is possible, however, for us to follow the process forward from blank page to final draft and learn something of what happens. When I'm looking at source code, I have no idea why those characters are sitting there dead on the screen in that particular order, right? It's not giving me the wisdom to reproduce it. Not really. I don't have enough context. We need the minutia. We need those micro steps. We're lucky in the Ruby community that minutia is out there. We've got a crap ton of tutorials. I've recently been teaching myself more JavaScript, too. We are really, really lucky in the Ruby community. So some examples, right? We've got build an app with Corey Haynes, which is a screencast series, not just something on my bucket list, although it sounds like it would be fun. There's Objects on Rails, ObdiGrem. What I want to talk about a little more today is Destroyal Software. Gary Bernhardt's screencasts. There's an 8-part series in there called Sucks Rocks. And it is perfect for my needs, maybe for yours too. It's super, super high in context. Maybe fiber. He's building an app from end to end, right? So it's a web app, so there's I/O. It's not just this disembodied bit of code that's keeping track of bowling scores. It's pulling stuff out of a database and an external API and serving JSON. It's detailed. At no point does code just kind of magically appear on the screen. Have you ever been following a tutorial and then suddenly there's code, right? At no point does that happen. We see every step. We see each misstep, and we see the thought process. It's pretty awesome. And it's trusted source. This is somebody that I want to learn from. Find somebody that you want to learn from. It could be Gary, maybe not. I don't really want to develop a Pokemon. Right? Just find somebody that you like. So I treated each episode like a kata. I watched it, took notes, and then attempted to reproduce from scratch. And I wouldn't move on to the next episode until I could reproduce this episode keystroke for keystroke. So the 8-part series has little runtime, little north of an hour. It took me 40 hours to fully internalize this. 40 hours. Gary types fast, turns out. Types kind of fast. So that's expensive, right? That's time I wasn't spending with my wife. Time I wasn't spending with my friends. I wasn't doing billable side work. So it was an actual measurable opportunity cost. Here's what I got. Testing, behavior versus testing implementation, kind of hand-wavy, kind of magical, right? Like, what the heck does that mean? Well, this was kind of when I started to understand that. This is my version of the search engine class. In the original Sucks Rocks app, he's using our Bing. That Bing API is long gone. So I just replaced it with a Google gem. That was 2 lines of production code that had to change, and then the entire app to change the external API that lets the app do the thing that it does. And since the test is testing the most basic thing that's meaningful, right? We're taking 2 strings, Microsoft and BOS, and comparing the results. You know, strings in, integers out. We're not mocking out the response. Because of that, 0 lines of the tests had to change, right? The tests don't care. I could have built a web crawler, and the test would have functioned just as well. This, of course, is a subset of the single responsibility principle, which has syllables. This is code from Sucks Rocks, pretty much line for line. It's not super apparent, but at no point is an active record object allowed to escape the model. And you'll notice the API, for_term, save_score. I guess I didn't really need to say the underscores there. Those are words that are meaningful to the domain. We're not using the active record API. We're using our own API. It's contained. That's because we got there with test-driven development. And this was the first time I kind of saw that, where our tests are influencing the shape of our entire system, where it's driving our production code. And it's obvious in hindsight, but if you look at the app as a whole, where you're essentially taking results from an external API, spitting them out JSON, you can just glue all that to a model. In fact, that's typically how most people would do that. Since we're just starting with basic Ruby objects, the external API and the model, where our system touches the outside world, they're contained, in their little corners, right? They're being put in the corner, much like baby. So seeing that, it was like, oh wow, that's freaking amazing, right? And it's a byproduct, right? It's not a constraint of the system. That would, the system would have worked just fine had it been glued to the model. This is also where I started to fight nil, right? How many times do we see stack traces like this? Undefined method each for nil class. Super helpful. Thank you, Ruby. This is the kind of crap I expect from JavaScript. I can't, it's meaningless. A lot of times the origin of that nil, it's not even going to be in the stack trace. Once, it's like one of those bath salt stories, right? I once saw a nil start in one object, travel through 2 others, into the backbone front end, and then back into the Ruby back end, right? And ate a guy's face off, right? But this is the thing that happened. Not his face, not his whole face. He had most of his face left. But that took me 2 friggin' days to track down. Where is this coming from? Binding that try is great, but if you're spending a lot of your day in there, following a thread backwards, chasing down nils, that's a problem. This is not Sucks Rocks. This is similar to some production code. We take stuff back from some external service wrapper, do some work on it, and then return it. Rather than returning a nil here, we use the Sentinel object. Typically, the response I get when I mention the word Sentinel object is, huh? Right? It's just an inert class declaration. It doesn't really do anything, but that's the point. It's also cheap. It adds, what, 2 lines of code? Yeah, 2-ish. Counting's hard. So it's not like the null object pattern. We're not looking to reduce the ifs throughout the system. We'll have to catch no score instead of nil, but we get stack traces like this. Holy crap! This tells us something, right? We look at this, and we see, oh yeah, right? We know exactly where this is coming from, right? It could have saved that guy's face. Yeah, Ruby and, by extension, Rails are super nil heavy. Fetch on hashes and find bang in active record will blow up if it doesn't find the thing. I highly recommend checking those out if you get a chance. Oh, and for something like this, I'll also throw an exception if I don't get anything back. But here, it's meaningful in this domain to have nothing come back. So it's nice to have, an object that represents nothing. Okay, so Gary has all that stuff in his brain, right? I guess. So it was through those 40 hours of learning this stuff, attempting to use that in my own side projects, and it worked like this, and showing coworkers this. It was through that process, the learn one, do one, teach one. Kind of made a copy of those tools for myself. And I'm not arrogant enough to even think I'm as good as Gary Bernhardt. And it's not the point. It's just that those tools are mine now, so I can pull them out whenever I think it's appropriate and put them away when they're not. I still Rails generate scaffold, because sometimes that's the right tool for the job. This isn't a belief system or dogma. Just because I spent the time learning this stuff, even test-driven development, sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not. So 40 hours, right? Safety. 40 hours, right? Is it worth it? Yeah, my code's safer now. I'm actually testing meaningful things. My code doesn't break as often. I'll make a change, and other parts of the system don't have to change as much. Typically, just the areas that are touching it directly. It's, holy crap, it's amazing. And I'm faster because I know this stuff, right? I made a copy for my own brain. I'm not just copying and pasting out of Stack Overflow. So safety, resilience, and speed. Any one of those would have made that 40 hours worth it, but I can afford not to with all 3 of them. But wait, there's more. I haven't told you the best part yet. And you can wonder, well, I sipped this water. Very wet. The best part, I now know how to start any project or even a new feature on an existing project with just a plain old Ruby object. The poro, right? And each time I do that, it kind of feels like I'm back at tryruby.org for the first time. Why? We haven't moved on yet. Kind of hope we don't. Because each time, I'm having so much friggin' fun, right? The first time we use Ruby, right, we're playing and we see like 10 dot times. Holy crap, you can't do that. This is programming. Or name dot reverse, right? It's not supposed to be fun. This can't be legal, right? And every time I'm doing this, right, and this is production code, I'm having so much fun. I'm having a blast. At some point, somebody's going to catch me writing Ruby and getting paid for it, right? And I shut it down. I lied. These aren't tools, right? They're friggin' toys. That's Wyrick up there at last year's RubyConf giving us Why Not Keynote, right? That code has no practical applicability. Like, I'm pretty sure you will get fired if you try to put something like that in production. Rightfully so, but look how much fun he's having. I'm sitting there watching him. It's December, and my wife asked me if Santa Claus is teaching me Ruby. Yeah, kind of, right? I think the very best programmers, I don't think at any point they were trying to become the best, right? I don't think that was ever their desire. That wasn't their driving goal. I think they're just having too much friggin' fun to walk away from the keyboard. I'm Zach. Have fun.